What an NBA Finals we just had. What a season we just had. A great basketball season in the association. And now the offseason. A new season really did begin today, and we're about to get you all ready for that here on today's All NBA show. What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All NBA show powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/AllCity. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Marc Stein of the Stein Line and the DLLS Mavs podcast, and the man who knows all the details going on as we get ready for the offseason. Marc, how are you doing today?
Adam Mares, season 80. Let me fix this season 80 is in the books. The NBA's 80th season is complete.
Man.
Our second season, it's in the books.
Yeah.
Now, the actual calendar the NBA calendar does not flip to 26, 27 until July 1st. But yes, you are correct. For all intents and purposes, a new year has begun. Teams can talk to their own free agents and their own extension-eligible players now.
Yeah.
It's going to be busy, man. It's going to be busy.
You look like a man who knows he's not going to sleep for a while.
You ready for trades?
I'm ready for trade season, man. I'm ready for the draft. I'm ready for all these things. And we are going to have Tim Legler on the show tomorrow. He was, of course, calling the finals, traveling today. Will be with us tomorrow. So we're going to talk. It's not where we're really ushering out this finals because there's a lot to get to. We'll talk about it on this show. But, Marc, the NBA is funny because there's a long break, from the end of July all the way up until training camp begins. It gets really slow, but I always get whiplash at the last game of the finals. It's like 6 hours later, all of a sudden, boom, here we go. We're into the new one. So you said the calendar didn't flip, but it kind of did flip. I mean, this week does represent a lot more looking forward than looking backward to what happens. I mean, would you not agree?
Well, especially just because there's been so much anticipation about a Giannis move. Finally, are we finally going to get this trade that we've been talking about incessantly? When I talk to people around the league, every team executive, every coach, every agent, Giannis' status comes up. It's always brought up. The way this thing's been trending is that it's finally going to happen in this window between the finals and the draft, which, of course, now the draft is a 2-day draft next Tuesday and Wednesday. So let's see. Can we finally get this thing done?
I hope so.
Something tells me you're not going to protest.
I am very ready for that. I mean, I've been 2 years ready for this Giannis trade to happen. I mean, we've put it on our headline. We've talked about it on the show a lot that I'm ready for us to have a resolution to all of it, whatever that resolution may be. But before we get there, we are going to talk Giannis. We're actually going to talk about a lot of people. You had an Aaron Gordon detail that was very interesting to me personally today. I want to ask you about the Timberwolves, Trey Murphy, LeBron, the draft order, which is, I mean, more of a mystery at this point than it typically is a year or with a week going into the draft. But we do have to talk about this finals, and incredible finals, man. Just for a 5-game series, I do think this is one that will reverberate for a while. It'll be one that we remember, and there were iconic moments. Game 4 in particular, just an iconic game, the way that it all happened. And I think even the Knicks winning it. Most years, I think you can predict one or two. It's like 1 or 2 teams, maybe 3. The Knicks were in the conversation of like the top 5 teams. But the way this season played out, going into the playoffs, they were by no means a shoo-in, and yet they cap it off as a historic playoff run, winning by this huge margin, barely losing any games. And to me, it's really impressive. It made for a great storyline, and I think for a lot of NBA fans, injected some life into it because the regular season is a slog. It's long. But this playoffs, watching a team come together, they just feel, as much as any year in the past 5, 6, 7, they feel like the right champs. They won because they played at such a high level. And to me, that'll be what I remember about the Knicks in this year is the right team won because they peaked at the right time and came together at the right time.
It was always going to be historic because we were either going to get the Knicks finally winning after this 50-plus year drought or Wemby winning his first. So one way or the other, the outcome was going to be something that I think we talked about for years. But, I mean, the Knicks played their best basketball in the playoffs far and away this season, and they were, for 3 rounds, incredibly dominant. And then in the finals became the kings of the comeback. And San Antonio took a double-digit lead in the first quarter in every single game. And it was only a 5-game finals, but it packed a ton into that series. And there are just so many storylines you could talk about. Obviously, Brunson's rise and coordination. I mean, before these playoffs, would Jalen Brunson have been a consensus top 10 player in the league? I think pretty close. Now, obviously, it's not even a question. Now we're asking, is he the greatest Knick ever?
Yep.
I mean, and that is a legitimate discussion because of how much he's changed the culture there, the contract he took that gave them the financial wiggle room to put a good team around him. Mike Brown's story, I'm fascinated by. Like,
yes.
I feel like that's a movie in itself. When you think about coaching young LeBron, getting fired by the Cavs twice, getting fired by the Lakers 5 games into a season, getting fired by the Kings, driving to the airport after meeting the media on a practice day in the middle of the season, filling in for Steve Kerr when the Warriors won their first of 2 in a row in 2017. He coached that team for so much of the playoffs while Steve Kerr was out ailing. And then he's the 6th choice to coach the Knicks at best. At best, he was their 6th choice. And he ends up leading them to a championship and proving himself to be so adaptable and connect with these guys and push all the right buttons and, you know, not be afraid to throw Jose Alvarado out there in the second half of one of the most important games of the season, and Alvarado helped change everything in that huge comeback from 29 down. So there are a lot of crazy stories. And look, this is my 33rd year covering the league. I was alive when the Knicks won it the last time, but what I consider to be my true entry to NBA fandom, the 77-78 season, when I was old enough to be locked in and loving it and collecting basketball cards. And the last day of the season, George Gervin and your guy Skywalker Thompson had the incredible duel for the scoring title. That's what I really remember that season. Maybe a little bit from the season before, but I was too young to remember the Knicks winning 2 titles in 4 seasons in 70 and 73. And it's still sinking in that the Knicks have actually won the championship.
Yeah.
I want to talk to more Knicks fans, people who really live and die with the team. And do you believe it yet? Do you actually believe that this happened?
It's so cool, man. I actually love that you kind of started with Mike Brown. You touched on all of them, but you spent the most time on Mike Brown, because I do think it's fascinating. You know, basketball is such a beautiful sport. This year in this playoff run, it really, if you're a basketball purist like myself, that is one of the things that was so special about this year is, one, there is no formula for success. We've had different types of champions for the last handful of years. So it's not like, everybody has to, the Celtics win. We better start shooting 53s a game because that's the only way you could win now. Not the case. We have different types of styles that look good in different rounds and can ascend to the top. And the Knicks represent a different style than I think most people anticipated would be the one on top. But the other part that makes the sport so beautiful is so much of it is about connection, belief, coming together. You have individual talents. How does it come together? And Mike Brown is a guy, to your point, that has been in the league for a long time in all these different roles. Wasn't thought of as this guy is the guy that can, make a magical run, help lead a magical run. But the story of the Knicks, in large part, is the story of Mike Brown coming in there, taking a team that had a solid base, but needed something new, something special. And the Knicks won this year because they accomplished that. He injected something different. This team was different from previous years in a way that I think it can be hard to put your finger on, but when you watch them, you can see it. And so I love that story. As we get into the offseason, and there's all these teams that are feeling a little hopeless or pessimistic about their outlook, Mike Brown was not the savior. To your point, he was the 3rd or 4th option, and yet he was the right one, and that's just what makes basketball so cool.
Yeah, and if you remember, early in the season, we heard Cat basically say he was unsure of his role. He didn't know what the new coach wanted. And then Mike Brown ended up reaching Cat as well as any coach he's ever had.
Yeah.
And getting Cat to play an effective level, I think he was a little bit overrated at the start of the finals when the Knicks took the 2-0 lead. I mean, he didn't score a fourth quarter point until game 4 of the finals. So I think it was a little bit overstated, but it was the most impactful two-way basketball when you consider the stakes that Karl Anthony Towns has ever played. And Mike Brown did a lot of that. He pushed a lot of right buttons. And I don't know. I think teams around the league are looking at the Knicks to see what they can glean for themselves, to see what they can use as a blueprint. And look, obviously, Brunson is a one-off, really, when you talk about a player that size, but how strong he is and the way he leads with physicality, even though he's so small. But the Knicks did look to me somewhat like Indiana last year, a team that was deep, a team where the coach was not afraid to put his 8th, 9th, 10th guy in the game. And I think in today's NBA, because of the pace of play, because of the toll that injuries take, and that everybody seems to deal with injuries, you need the deepest possible team. I mean, we're seeing that. And I think that's something that teams will want to try to emulate. But look, I mean, the Knicks didn't draft any of their starters, and 4 of their starters were acquired by trade, and they signed Brunson away from Dallas in a blunder that the last time we went into all that, everybody said that we were talking too much Mavs. So I don't know that we're going to do that again today. But because that is another story that I'm never going to be able to let go of. But, I don't know how replicable what they've done is, but I think everybody in the league wants to be as deep as possible now. I just think you have to be able to play 9, 10 guys because you're going to have injuries. You just are.
Well, what I would say about the Knicks is that I think basketball has a soul to it. Your team has to have a soul to it. And they're not the only one. There are a lot of teams that had soul to them, but they just had a lot of it in this year. And that team had this identity and this core to them that they were able to tap into in tough moments. They were able to ride the wave through this entire run. And that's why I say that basketball is a beautiful sport. Is we watched it in real time, man. We just watched this team become the best version of themselves because of that soul. And it was a great story.
How hard do you think Coach Legler is going to be on the Spurs tomorrow?
Man, I'm so curious. I'm very curious. I don't think he'll be hard. Legs is a bit of a softie sometimes. He'll make a point. He'll say things, but he'll have a soft spot for the the lessons the Spurs had to learn in this playoffs. Which this is why sports are unforgiving.
I mean, the stats are unreal. What is it that Knicks led for 56 minutes in 5 games, and the Spurs led for like 170, something like that.
I mean,
just.
Yeah. And the other thing about the Spurs is they did make the finals as this incredibly young team. And so it's funny because you have what by almost all accounts is a successful season, all the things they accomplished. And yet that will be the thing that I think sticks with them.
It ended so badly that I think that's all they're going to hear about.
I agree. And that's why I say it's almost ironic because it's like, good job. You overperformed. You're a disappointment. What do you do with the offseason? Before we go to the Spurs, though, can we just stay on the Brunson thing?
Yeah.
Because the older I get, Mark, the more I love the history of the league. I didn't used to be when I was younger that into the history, but you just said one of the best Knicks of all time. And I think there's a handful of guys that, it's a short list of players you could talk about. But what Jalen Brunson just did to me elevates him into the conversation. I hate this idea of having to rank, even all-time best player of all time. I just hate it because you start to split hairs against people that had near perfect careers. But Jalen Brunson, to me, man, he's in the S tier. What he did in that closeout game, I say they have a soul. It was his soul. He gave that team an identity and a belief, and they all had it. But then when it came down to the closeout game, it just was on his shoulders and he performed. And to me, maybe you can put better perspective on this, but to me, there's no one greater. He might not be the greatest, but there's no one greater than him in terms of he got it done and his fingerprints were all over it.
I mean, look, those teams in 70 and 73 are always going to be magical for Knicks fans who are old enough to see them. Willis Reed, Walt Frazier, Bradley, DeBusschere, on and on and on. Like those are, they have it just, there's a magic about them that, again, for Knicks fans of a certain age, those guys are untouchable. And look, Ewing didn't win a championship, but he was a ridiculously good player who had to go up against the Jordan Bulls and, got a lot done despite not winning it all. But Brunson might have the best story. He might have the best story out of all these guys because he had to play with the weight of the drought on his shoulders, and a city which, I think we ran through this stat at some point in the last couple of weeks. The Knicks, I believe, have won 39 playoff games now with Jalen Brunson leading the way. That's in 4 postseason, almost 10 wins a postseason in the 4 years that Brunson has been there. They won 8 playoff games total in the previous 21 years. It was just losing, depression, mistakes, mismanagement, and Brunson had to play with all of that on his shoulder. The Ewing-led Knicks going to the finals in 94 and 99 and not winning, that was heaped onto these Knicks as well. And, Brunson is he's just all about the right stuff. He is so tough. I saw it with my own eyes the first 3-4 years he was in Dallas. I always come back to it. Luka Doncic is out for the first 3 games of the playoffs. Mavs go down 1-0 to Utah. And Jalen Brunson, who at that point was not talked about like he is now, goes for 31 and 41 in back-to-back games with almost no turnovers and hauls the Mavs to 2 wins without their best player. That was it right there. For me, that was it. People say revisionist history. Revisionist history? He did it in the playoffs. He did it. Those were monster performances.
Yep.
And the whole league saw them then. Obviously he's at a different level now. What he did last night, the way scoring half his team's points. It was
special
ridiculous
stuff, man.
Yeah, but this guy has won at every level he's played at.
That's a cool part of this.
And he knows how to get to the finish line.
I'm such a believer in that too, by the way, just the guys that have won at all levels. Is there something to it? Because basketball is not all, you can't quantify all of it. So the guys that are just part of winning organizations, that means something to me. Let's go to the other side though, because the Spurs, Victor Wembanyama had a very interesting playoffs, and part of this is personality driven, but I think he was the golden boy for a lot of this playoff run. We saw a wave of fans, casual fans even, really enjoy watching this guy play. But I feel like he also had, a big rise and kind of a big fall in that he became a polarizing figure. And then, you talk about coming up short in some of these big moments, as I think he did. So what do you make of the Wemby arc, and what have some of the conversations been about where he leaves things right now, which is I don't know if he's more villain than hero at the moment, but he might be.
I think people are going to overreact to how bad this series was. Because look, the end of game 2, the second half of game 4, multiple fouls that weren't even called fouls in real time that could have been flagrants. There's a lot of stuff that people are going to remember and not fondly about Victor Wembanyama's postseason.
And it'll follow him, I think. The foul thing in particular, I think it's the first time he has a tough elbow or bumps a player like that. People are going to say, dirty player, dirty player. So I think that part is going to stick for a while.
I think it's just, you have to remember, he is 22. There were moments that he hit levels. These were the first playoffs he's ever tasted. So it's still so early in the game for him. But I remember when they won the conference finals and he was talking about the Larry O'Brien trophy, and even that had this is too soon. You haven't played in the finals yet. Don't talk about I don't think I'm superstitious, but it just made me uneasy.
Yeah.
The Knicks were the older, tougher team.
Yeah.
But look, he is 22. Look at the damage he does offensively. When he doesn't even know how to get to his spots yet. And he's gonna get so much better at that as time goes on. This is going to be the worst he is for a long time. But look, he missed a lot of free throws. His fourth quarter numbers were really poor offensively, the Spurs were generally just awful in fourth quarters. But I mean, Wemby really struggled at some key parts of this series. And yeah, I mean, it's like how he bounces back from this when at time, before these finals, he was being talked about as he's the new best player in the world. And it was premature. Yeah. And so it's going to be very interesting to see how he and the Spurs respond from this. I mean, De'Aaron Fox had such a bad finals. And look, a year ago, the questions were being asked, why are you maxing out Fox if you drafted Harper? How are these guys all going to play with Castle there as well? And, I mean, how do the Spurs undo the logjam? And I don't, on June 15th, basically, as we shift to off-season talk here, I don't have that answer yet. And I don't know how they're going to. But Dylan Harper's role has to expand. I mean, he should have played more in these finals. And I think with hindsight, the Spurs are going to say the same. All right, that's enough of my Legler.
Well, no, because you're touching on something interesting here. And Devin Vassell, I'm sure you caught this, when his post-game presser, he let it slip that, hey, I know Dylan Harper wasn't happy with his role early on, but he kind of got with the program. And it echoes things I'd heard, quite frankly, from around the league for most of the year. That is, Dylan Harper is one of these young players that believes in himself a lot. And that's a good thing. But with that belief comes, hey, am I on the slow track here? Because we want to do this and we have some other players and this guy just got a max. And so now I have to come off the bench. And look, it didn't seem to manifest itself in any way public facing this year. But with how Fox played, with how Harper's played this year, how he's risen, I do think that's an interesting thing. Dylan Harper's a great player. I think they have to invest in him a lot. Fox is starting a new Supermax. And to me, that is one of the big revelations for the Spurs. It just feels like a year early, learn your lessons and rise. But the truth is, you've been covering the league so long. It's not the same problems you face every year, and then you just check off the box and move on. New ones arrive, and I'm curious if you think a new one might be. Dylan Harper is done with training wheels. He needs full investment, but you have a Supermax player. I foresee that getting difficult no matter what the Spurs do.
Yeah, because it's not like the Spurs to just react to one series and say, we're going to start trading guys away.
Can't do that either.
And look, they traded for Fox before they knew they were getting Harper in the draft. I mean, it's a great what if. I don't know if we're ever going to get the answer. Would they have traded for Fox if they knew they were going to get number 2 in the lottery and have the chance to draft Harper? But coming off these finals and with that contract that's about to start, Fox is not going to be tradable. So, look, the Spurs still have a great young core and so much room to grow and a history of winning and such a strong program that it's hard to believe anything but we see them back on this stage sooner rather than later. But you also have to say in today's NBA, the parity era, nobody seems to be promised anything. So, again, Wemby, it's still so early in Wemby's development. But, yeah, they have trade assets. They're like, I still think most teams out there would trade their future for San Antonio's in a heartbeat.
Well, the thing with Wemby that's interesting to me is I've been at this now 12 years, Mark, and I've already seen the arc of new player comes up in, hype him up, talk about his character. Oh, what a great guy. We love this guy. And then something turns. Kevin Durant's the best example. He just likes to ride his bike and wear a backpack and talk to kids as he rides through Oklahoma City. He's just a good guy. And now he's a villain. Oh, he's the worst guy. Can you believe he's antisocial? And I just look at the Wemby situation like this. None of this stuff is true. It's just narratives. When I say these things, I'm not trying to say anything about these players. I'm saying it's what you have to deal with. And Wemby had been, for most of this run, propped up. Everybody's saying good things about him. And the noise now is people I just do think are going to be a lot more critical of everything he does. I don't know if they're going to find the charm in some of the things that they found the charm in before. And it just comes quick. And Wemby, to me, Wemby is probably, I think he's probably designed and good at dealing with this. But he's never going to, I don't think he ever has had the amount of commentary on him as he will now after this finals. People are going to critique him and comb through everything he does with a fine-tooth comb. And I just think that will be a change. It's just with the modern day, that is a burden for players to carry, and I think he's going to have to carry it now.
Although I think, you know what, had the Spurs won this series, it probably would have happened in a different tone. But I think the same thing would have happened. I think Oklahoma City saw that this year.
Oh,
That,
totally.
suddenly they're not looked at as the young darlings now that they're defending champions, and got off to a 24-1 start and then struggled some. So, yeah, there's no question. I mean, Wemby has graduated. Remember, his first 2 years in the league did not make the playoffs. He has graduated to a level of scrutiny that I agree with you. I do think it's probably even more than he was anticipating or coached to expect. Seems like a very mature kid. He's with a franchise that does a pretty good, pretty historically good at tuning out the noise and running their own show. So we'll see how he deals with it over time. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
the way people were talking about Wemby going into the finals and the way they are as we exit the season is a stunner.
All right, well, let's take a break. We just wanted to wrap up that with the finals and kind of really it's the season that we're talking about here. The entire NBA season.
The offseason primer is coming. I saw somebody in chat saying, "Where is the offseason primer?"
We got
it is
impatient
en
dad.
route.
Yeah,
it is en route.
It's an hour-long talk show. All right, let's take a break. On the other side, I do want to talk about the big storylines and what sets the table for what will be a very eventful week 2, 3, 4 on the other side of the show. Stage in world soccer is here, the World Cup, of course. Every goal changes everything, and now FanDuel is giving you a reason to root for every single one. And introducing Every Goal Pays. Bet on a match and get bonus bets for every goal scored in that match. That's right, more goals means more bonus bets, and all you have to do is turn on your token. From the opening whistle to the final kick, let there be goals on FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com/AllCity to get started now.
Must be 21 or older and present in select states. For Kansas in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in DC. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.
It's sunglass season. You guys know that moment, the one where you realize you left your favorite pair of sunglasses at the beach, on the roof of your car, or at a gas station 3 states away. You've all been there. But luckily, now they're Shady Rays. They've changed the game. They've got sunglasses that are made for real life. They're good looking, polarized, durable, not stupidly expensive, which is why I own like 8 pairs of them. And the wild part is if you break or lose them even on day one, Shady Rays will send you a brand new pair. No guilt trip, just replacements. So now you can actually wear your sunglasses without fear. On hikes, at concerts, on the boat, wherever, Shady Rays is eyewear that has your back. Go to shadyrays.com and use the code ALLCITY, all one word, ALLCITY for 50% off 2+ pairs of polarized sunglasses. All right, back here, segment 2 of the All-NBA show. We've got Marc Stein. Let's go to the offseason primer now. And where else would we start other than Giannis? So Giannis is, as we've talked about, the first big domino to fall that needs to fall, or the biggest name in this offseason. And it feels like we have some traction. I mean, sometimes even just looking at the odds on some of these books, it looks like there's some traction for him. So what's the latest going on with Giannis?
Everyone I talk to is expecting a resolution before the draft now. And look, Jimmy Haslam, one of the Bucks co-owners, basically said that early May, the Bucks introduced Taylor Jenkins as their new coach. And he said, by the draft, we either need to trade him or no, he's going to do an extension. But remember, Giannis cannot do an extension until October. So, I mean, after everything that's happened, if he promised, I'm going to do an extension, would the Bucks be prepared to act on just a promise? But I got to be honest, when I talk to other teams, people, again, executives, coaches, agents, whoever it is, nobody's forecasting that. Now, look, I can't give you a consensus on where he's going because some people I talked to convinced that the momentum is still with Miami, who have been going after him hard since February. Of all the teams that were after Giannis in February, really Miami is the only one still in that chase. And when it comes to Miami, we know the players, the bulk of the players on the table. It's Hero, it's Ware, it's Jaquez, it's the 13th pick on June 23rd in the first round of the draft. There's other unspecified draft consideration that we haven't confirmed that would presumably be in the deal. Maybe more players, we'll have to see. So we have an idea with Miami what they're trying to get done. But the Boston talk, it has gotten louder and louder and louder. And really, since the end of May, this has been out there. And my old friend Bill Simmons beat me to it. I wrote about this in May that my weekend column, whatever day it was, Saturday or Sunday, I was going to write the two teams that keep coming up with Giannis are Miami and Boston. And Bill said it on his podcast, like on a Thursday, a couple days before my weekend column. So, Bill was the first one to talk about Boston as a place that interests Giannis. And based on everything I've heard for the last 2-3 weeks, I think that was dead on, because it is believed strongly that Giannis wants to stay in the East, and he needs to win.
Yeah.
It's amazing to think Giannis has not been beyond the first round of the playoffs since 2022.
I know it's actually a while.
Your Nuggets were not yet NBA champions at that point. The last time we saw him out of round one. And I imagine it's killing him. He wants to compete for championships. So by all accounts, he wants to stay East. And like I said, when I talk to people, the expectation clearly is we're nearing a resolution. The draft is a week from Tuesday. Are we going to have an answer by a week from Tuesday? I hope so, Adam Matas. I hope so.
Are we already down in your mind? Like, what are the chances that it really is down to those three teams, Milwaukee, Miami, and Boston? Do you get a sense that...
I would say this. Portland, there have been rumbles for a while now that Portland is a team that would have the guts to just make a trade for Giannis. But remember, Giannis only has one guaranteed year left on his deal.
Yeah.
He does have a great amount of control and influence here.
Yeah.
You're not going to trade a ton for Giannis unless you're sure he's going to extend with you. Now, he's extension eligible October 1st if he stays with Milwaukee. If they trade him, he's extension eligible 6 months from the trade. And if you're trading for Giannis, you need his signature on an extension 6 months and 1 minute after the trade, because you don't give up the kind of assets it's going to take to not know you can keep the guy.
And yet, though, the reason I'm asking this, like, Portland feels like a real wild card for me, but a lot of these big trades that have happened over the last year, it has come out of nowhere, where there's been a surprise team and this is going to be the thing that happens, and then all of a sudden there's a huge curveball. And so that's why I ask if just Miami, Boston, to me, logical sense. Both of those teams seem to have the assets to make an aggressive offer. They're in the East, all of those things. But I just wonder if this is one of those things that develops really quickly. I even remember LeBron to Miami was one of those things that was such a surprise when it happened, because it wasn't the teams they were talking about. But it sounds like maybe at this moment.
Well, look, the question's going to be, we know what the Heat are going to offer. You're basically looking at now your Giannis and Bam, and where are you going? How are you putting a team around them after you've sent all your assets out the door to get Giannis? So that's going to be Miami's challenge. But their front office with Andy Ellisberg at the heart of it is so good. Me from afar, I'm thinking if the Heat can actually get this thing over the finish line and get Giannis there, somehow Andy Ellisberg will figure out the rest to put the right role players around him, which again, I'm not trying to say it's going to be easy, but the hardest part is getting the all-star difference maker. That is always the hardest thing.
Of course.
In Boston's case,
yeah,
they have to trade Jalen Brown to get this done. And so who is the third team that comes into this that would take Jaylen Brown? Because now, again, this is a presumption, but the working presumption when you talk to people around the league is that the Bucks, instead of keeping Jaylen Brown for themselves, would rather move him for assets to get younger and really start over. Because remember, so many of Milwaukee's picks are out the door already when they made the Damian Lillard trade. So that's another reason why you hear a lot about Portland, because obviously the Bucks would love to get Portland involved in this thing as one of the facilitating teams. So maybe the Bucks get back one of the picks that they used to get Lillard there.
Yeah. Well, I usually we save super chats for the end, but Charlie Saturday here says, why wouldn't Giannis extend anywhere he can win? But this is the gamble, right? There are other teams. I mean, in Oklahoma City or even a Cleveland, those teams, Giannis has not stated he would want to go there. It seems like he's signaling he would not want to go there. But the truth is, if a team were to make that bet, they would be betting on, yeah, but how bad do you want to win? Because here you have a chance to do it a lot. I don't know if teams are willing to take on that type of risk. That's a Kawhi to Toronto kind of risk.
Well, those conversations obviously happen before the trade is finalized.
Yeah.
If it gets that far advanced, and perhaps it already has, I can't say with certainty that it has. But when trades get to that point, I imagine the Bucks would bless Giannis's representatives to talk to the team he would land with so they could have those conversations. But look, Charlie Saturday is a pal of DLS, a frequent visitor to our chat space on that show. He lives and dies with every Bucks dribble. I mean, I don't think this answer is going to surprise him. I am not in the business of trying to speak for Giannis or guess exactly where, what he wants the most, because this would have been a lot easier a process to forecast if it had been, Giannis wants to go to these teams, but that really hasn't happened throughout this whole process. Like, it's emerged here in the last month, that Miami and Boston are two places he would be good with landing. But, again, I can't sit here and say, yes, Giannis himself told me that. So
let's move on to another one you had today, which was about Aaron Gordon was the Denver Nugget who has been garnering the most trade interest. Denver reportedly has everyone on the table not named Jokic. Aaron Gordon is an interesting piece because he's essential for them, but he's been injured. And you put in there that Denver is more interested in moving Christian Brown. So what can you tell us about the interest of Aaron Gordon around the league? And are teams really actively, ready to make calls on him?
It sounds, based on what I'm hearing, that he is the Nugget who would be easiest to trade. I think they would obviously prefer not to move him, but they want to keep Peyton Watson, who's going to be a restricted free agent. And so they're trying to, they want to make some kind of trade that creates more wiggle room under the aprons. But look, Denver, Minnesota, Golden State, Clippers, Lakers, like this month, you anticipate a good bit of activity because there are a lot of teams out there that need to shuffle and need to make moves and want teams that want to make changes. And as we know in the modern NBA, the more significant changes are typically made by trade, not in free agency. So the Giannis domino is where it starts. And we've got LeBron's free agency as well, which will be a story unto itself. But the Nuggets, I would say, are one of those teams that people are looking at for what kind of changes are they going to make. Their playoff rivals, Minnesota, same deal. Who are the Wolves going to trade? The Wolves, they need ball handling and shooting. How are they going to find a pathway to that? The Clippers, are we finally going to get a resolution to the investigation on, all the aspiration stuff? Does that happen before the draft? Does that happen after the draft, but before free agency? That has to play out realistically before July 1st. It would be very strange if it didn't.
I mean, maybe even before that. I just feel like everybody needs to know those details before going into this, even into the draft and those types of things. What is the next biggest story? So we talked about LeBron, Giannis, Aaron Gordon. Like, who else is the most interesting, purse player or detail going on?
Then you have the teams in the East like Detroit that won 60 games, but their playoffs ended in disappointment. Cleveland's got to get under the second apron. The Pistons, they need shooting to help Cade Cunningham. They're going to address that. And the Pistons have, they've got Jalen Duren as a restricted free agent. Asar Thompson's going to be rookie scale contract extension eligible in the fall. So, or actually from July 6th through the last day of the offseason and, on the eve of opening night. So the Pistons are going to be a really interesting team to keep an eye on. I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot.
What about Trey Murphy and by extension the New Orleans Pelicans? I think Trey Murphy is one of the more like every team wants him, but
for sure every team, a lot of teams want him, no doubt. But the Pelicans, based on everything I've been told, the threshold for a Trey Murphy trade is very, very high, and I don't know who is going to meet that price. I mean, I don't know who's going to meet that price because again, to give up. Like a year ago, we saw Desmond Bane go for 4 first-rounders. Would we see that same trade now? With the flattened lottery odds, would teams be willing to give up 4 firsts when they say, well, couldn't 1 or 2 of those like maybe win the lottery in this new system? Right. So,
let me ask you this, Mark, could there be a market correction on that? Teams that are hoping to trade a player like Trey Murphy, they're going in with the expectation of a previous market, and maybe that extends this window. Usually things happen so fast, but I'm wondering if maybe things go slow this year because the sellers are not getting the price they want because the market has changed.
Well, if things go slow on the trade market, it's going to be real interesting to see how change comes about because there's very little cap space out there.
Yeah.
The Nets are going to have cap space. The Bulls are going to have cap space. The Lakers will have cap space if they renounce a bunch of free agents. But there has to be trades. But no, I think you raise a good point, and we don't really have that answer yet. Like, again, a year ago, you had Bane being traded for 4 firsts. A Giannis Antetokounmpo trade has to involve draft capital. There have to be multiple picks in a deal like that. But after that, we're going to have to see how many first-round picks are actually in play trade-wise.
It will be interesting to see that very detail. Another team I'm interested in is the Minnesota Timberwolves because it seems like Anthony Edwards is starting to put pressure on the organization and start to say, hey, which direction are we going? What do you expect from the Timberwolves? And what's the latest on them?
Well, there's a lot of curiosity about what they're going to do. Randle, Gobert, Naz Reid. Can you really keep all 3 of those guys without addressing their shooting needs, their ball handling needs? Can they keep Ayo? Because they're going to have competition for him. Dosunmu played so well in the playoffs that there's going to be suitors who make a run at him. And, it's been suggested to me, I thought mid-level, the full mid-levels, the $15 million range. Could Dosunmu attract more than that? Some people think so. So I think it's going to be competitive just keeping Dosunmu and then adding to it. They're going to have to find a trade that's probably going to involve one of their significant names. But as you well know, your guy, Tim Connolly, is not afraid to make daring moves and big moves. So I think you are correct to highlight the Wolves as a team we need to be monitoring closely.
Do you think there's any tension added to the situation that Karl-Anthony Towns, Julius Randle, that was the swap, and now Karl-Anthony Towns has become a hero in this playoff run? Does that add anything, any layers?
Because they did make 2 conference finals in a row they made the second one after they made one with Towns and one with Randle.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm sure Wolves fans are looking at this saying, I mean, how can they not miss Karl-Anthony Towns with the level of effectiveness he found as a Knick? But again, Tim Connolly to me is always so aggressive that I think I would expect the Wolves to be aggressive, even if the Knicks hadn't won it all. So I don't know how related they are, but all the teams in the West know that the Spurs and the Thunder looked like they were on a separate tier, and they have work to do to catch up. So they have to make moves to try to close the gap.
Another team I'm interested in is the Brooklyn Nets, because they're the team that rolled snake eyes in the lottery.
Yeah.
And it just feels like it's their time to make a move. And what role do you think they're going to play here in the upcoming weeks?
What's so interesting with the Nets is at this point, nobody can seem to pinpoint what they're going to do with their draft pick. Are they staying at 6? Are they moving down? And then they do have cap space, but free agents to sign outright, is there a true franchise player for them to go after? And it doesn't look like there is. So can they use that cap space to make a trade, to trade somebody into that space? Or are they so far away, are they going to be forced to take a longer term view again, which I know they don't want to do? I think you summed it up, like they're in the same city as the Knicks. They just watched the Knicks win a championship. I don't think they want to, continue to lose the way they have, but they drafted a zillion guards last year and none of them looked close to being a truly frontline player. And yeah, they had their lottery aspirations were way higher than 6.
Well, the other thing that's coming up here is obviously the NBA draft, and I feel like there's still no consensus on what the order will be for all of these picks. What can you tell us about that? Does Washington know who they're going to take number 1? Does Utah know? Do all of these teams seem to know what the top 4 spots are?
I do think the top 4 teams know, but look, Jake Fisher, who writes twice a week for my Substack, was in the room when the lottery played out, and the Wizards told him directly, the Jazz did as well, that they are open to listening. They will listen to pitches. Now, do I think the Wizards are trading out of number 1?
Probably not.
I wouldn't say I'm leaning that way, but would they listen? I think they gave the impression certainly that they would listen, but look, I am not a draft expert. I leave that to the true draft experts, people who cover the draft 24/7, 365. But DeBonta's projected to go 1. And based on everything I've been hearing, like Chicago, is Chicago going to trade out of the top 4? No, I would be surprised.
Not
like,
them.
And that's where like the Clippers, the intrigue might just start with the Clippers, because we still don't know, do the Clippers keep 5? Do they trade 5? And again, if we get a ruling on the allegations of cap circumvention, maybe that clarifies what the Clippers might do in the draft. But 5, 6, are those in play? 7, everybody knows Sacramento likes Acuff. 8, is Atlanta going to hang on to 8? Number 9, that's Dallas. And we reported last week on my Substack, Jake reported that the Mavs have let teams know they've looked to move up. They're open to moving up. They're open to moving down. But I think realistically that there's so much anticipation for the top 4 in this draft. It's going to be really hard to move up. I've yet to hear anybody really say they think that moving up into the top 4 of this draft is feasible.
Yeah, it really does feel more like a movement among the top 4. And it's the precedent for this is obviously the Tatum Fultz draft of a team, cleverly disguising who it is they want, being able to move back in the draft and still getting who they want, or a team just being aggressive to move a couple spots up. And I wouldn't be surprised if that one happens this year. We'll just have to wait and see, especially given what you just said about Jake Fisher and, both sides of that saying, hey, yeah, we're open to it. We'll listen at least to what people say. The last team there's actually a lot of teams I find interesting this offseason. Usually there's only 3 or 4, but the last one that we haven't mentioned, and it might surprise you, is the Orlando Magic, because I think Orlando is a team that just has to shake up their roster, has to shake something up about them. And they have a lot of good players. Not a great team, but they have a lot of players that I think a lot of teams would be interested in. Is there any movement or anything you're hearing, any whispers on the other side about the Orlando Magic?
Well, on some level, I think they were always thought to be a potential Giannis team, but last week the sources we talked to were pretty emphatic that Orlando's not in the Giannis chase. And look, all their draft capital went out the door to get Bane. They brought in Sean Sweeney as their new coach. Are they going to do they want to see how this group meshes with the new coach before they really consider further drastic changes? Now, look, it wouldn't surprise me if they make at least one trade because they do need more shooting. And yeah, I think
they could become interesting, I think, very quickly. They have a lot of players, and if they pull something off nice, not like a huge blockbuster, but if they pull something off, I think they could become one of the more interesting teams next season.
I think you are right to circle them, and we are right to talk about them. But yeah, I mean, it's become where trades in June. Like that's the action that you anticipate.
Well, here's my last one for you, Mark, and that is, what should we expect this week? Because next week's the draft. Things start to pick up. What do you expect to happen this week? Is it just rumor week, or is there anything that we should be keeping our eye out for?
A lot of chatter today about the Bulls possibly announcing their coach as soon as tomorrow. There are still 3 coaching vacancies in the league: Chicago, Portland, and Dallas. So keep your eye on the Bulls finally naming a replacement for Billy Donovan. But really, you're going to hear tons of draft talk. You're going to see lots of mock drafts. There's going to be tons of draft chatter, but it's Giannis. Until we get a definitive, a trade or the press conference of Charlie Saturday's dreams where they come out and say, you know what, we're staying together. But again, when I talk to people around the league, nobody is forecasting that one. Like, are we finally getting our Giannis trade between now and June 23rd?
Probably not, which means we'll talk about
probably
it next
not.
Week. I'm saying, but by July 23rd, yes.
June
this
20,
week,
June 23rd.
June 23rd.
By next Sunday's show, it'll be interesting. Will we still be talking? Will we still be talking about a Giannis trade, or will we look?
There'll probably be a little bit more intel, a little more info.
If the Giannis trade goes down before Sunday, then we're going to be talking about a lot of different scenarios. Because then I think the focus shifts to everything else.
We got a couple super chats that came in here. Let's hit them because there's some good questions in there. First one, Damon says, has anything about Lakers' new ownership / new hires in the front office changed anything about how they're operating? I like this question. New owners in LA. Is it going to be is this a new day in Tinseltown?
Well, they are going to hire their goal was to hire 2 new assistant general managers. They've hired 1. I don't foresee the other one probably being hired. I mean, now teams are all in the middle of draft and trade and free agency preparation. So I would anticipate the second hire probably waiting a bit. But look, the Lakers, they have a lot to get done this summer because Austin Reeves is a free agent. LeBron James is a free agent. And we know they want to upgrade the roster around Luka Doncic. So how are they going to do it? Are they going to renounce free agents and try to do it by trade? I think the Lakers are a team that, again, once we get past Giannis, they're going to be talked about quite a bit.
But I do feel that with the Lakers, the first offseason kind of tells you about new ownership, new management. That's the biggest reveal. I don't know if they're good or bad. It is different. There's excitement for Lakers.
It's not baseball. In baseball, Mark Walter can come in and spend to the moon. And now the Lakers are going to do all kinds of amazing things infrastructure wise with their medical facilities. They're going to upgrade every what's the word I'm looking for? Every bit of carpet. I mean, everything, it's going to be a total renovation of all things, cosmetic and infrastructure. But in the NBA, you're dealing with a salary cap and those damn aprons. So, the luxury tax, the aprons, they can't really do anything about that. So they're going to have to be creative to keep improving the roster around Luka.
Feels like a big week for them. Carrot Hammer says, does seem like the market has changed. Teams will have to adjust accordingly with contracts and trades. Why isn't free agency much of a thing anymore? You've talked about this a lot, but players just don't get there anymore.
Because in the latest CBA, it became so advantageous. It was already this way in the previous CBA to a degree, but especially in this CBA, it just became so financially advantageous to do extensions that, as one longtime agent put it to me, as crazy as this sounds, free agency is not a desired status. Guys want extensions so they don't even have to mess with the open marketplace. If it's time to switch teams later, they'll figure it out via trade. But guys generally don't want to go to free agency anymore, which is amazing to say. And teams are not preserving cap space for it either. The way you change your roster dramatically is typically now through a trade.
All right, Mark. Well, it's good stuff. This is, a big week. It feels like maybe we're still a week away from the big fireworks. But as you said, man, conversations are happening. Rumors are going to heat up. People should be locked to the Steinline Substack, one of the biggest sports Substacks in the world, as well as DLS Mavs, because the Mavs have an interesting offseason as well. Mark, I'm going to wrap up with a market watch, but I'll say goodbye to you now. I appreciate you taking the time for us.
Always good to be with you, my friend. We'll do it again next week.
We'll do it next week as things heat up. All right, we're going to end today's show, though, by doing our Kalshi Market Watch. We've been doing this a lot here throughout this playoff run. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app, use the code ALLNBA. You get $10 when you trade 10, KALSHI, Kalshi. Trade on anything, 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory. What are we looking at this week? Kalshi, where you can place a position and you can buy in and out. LeBron James's next team. 71% he stays with the Los Angeles Lakers or retires. 18% Golden State. That makes up the entirety of the market there. So everybody thinks he's staying in LA, which I should say the market thinks he's staying in LA, which is interesting. Giannis's next team. Miami 50%, Boston 33%, stays with Milwaukee down to 9%. Cleveland 2%, Golden State 2%. So a little bit of movement there. This is one of those ones where if you're like me, and I just feel like anytime this early, it feels like, we all know it's going to be Miami or Boston. There's always this third team goes in. So if you want to buy a position, there you can check it out. I've got Ja Morant's next team. Stays in Memphis or retires. 31%. Just 31%. You got Milwaukee 19%. Miami 15%. Sacramento 14%. Minnesota 13%. Chicago 11%. That's kind of a fun one. A lot of different options there. What else do we have here? Jalen Brown's next team. Stays in Boston or retires. 46%. Atlanta, 41%. That's an interesting one. A little eye-opening. Portland, 10%. So the market seems to be saying that Jalen Brown is likely done in Boston. You guys can place a position on that one. If you think they're wrong, you can place a position there. Let's see. Who else is here? Trey Murphy stays with New Orleans or retires, 39%. Detroit, 25%. So there's where the market thinks his offer is going to come to. Any other ones? Austin Reeves, Los Angeles Lakers, 83% that he's going to sign. This is the one we talked about earlier. I was talking about it before the show. We didn't do it on the show. I don't know that I would love this one, given the money he wants, the max. Luka and Austin Reeves is not how I would build a team. I love Luka. I think Luka's great. I think Austin Reeves is great. I don't know if I would go with both of them together if I was putting my max money into two players, especially when you saw how dynamic defensively you have to be to get it done in these playoffs. Lakers, 83%. Brooklyn is an interesting one, 12%. Could Brooklyn throw a wrench in the system? Detroit, 2%. Dallas, 2%. That's what's cool about Kalshi, though, is you can buy in and out of positions. And I like that one in particular. It's fun when you have the games and you have, champion and this or that. By the way, I should tell you, champions for next season. What does Kalshi think? Oklahoma City, 28%. San Antonio, 27%. So they're almost even. New York, 15%. Boston, 12%. And then you get 6% for Minnesota and Denver, 4% for Detroit, 6% for Indiana. And that's pretty much it. So if you want to get in early, place a position right now before free agency happens if you feel like you have a feeling. Kalshi is a lot of fun for trading on. Play that outro music there, Atticus. We hope you guys enjoyed this primer, this offseason primer. Legs is back with me tomorrow. He's going to be on the show Monday and Wednesday this week. Me and Jason Timpf are going to be with you on Friday. And I can't wait to hear, Legs had a very good finals. As you guys can see, if you missed the Ben Stiller episode, check that one out. That was a lot of fun to hear from Ben Stiller, who I personally love. And it was cool to get to talk to him. But Legs will be back sharing his takeaways from that series, from the Knicks, from Wembanyama, from Fox, and really the season at large. Tomorrow I look forward to just talking about the season, what it all means. You don't really know what a season means like at the NBA, what direction things are going till it all wraps up. It was a very interesting one this year. We appreciate you hanging with us. Make sure you hit the like button. I will say that we have our draft profiles. The draft is in, 8 days, 9 days? If you haven't gotten ready for the draft yet, 5 minutes, you can go through all the prospects. We have these great video breakdowns on our channel right now, these videos. So if you go to our YouTube page, you're going to check it out and you can watch all of those. You can watch, all of them in one day. Honestly, if you just want to get familiar with them, just plow through all of them. They're really well made from our guy, Will Gottlieb, who covers the Bulls for us at CHGO. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us. Hit the like button for us on the way out. We'll see you tomorrow.
We all silly like the mayor.